Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Noah coming to you from my apartment. I wanted to add this little tag at the beginning to just have some housekeeping notes before we get rolling into the episode. First of all, this episode is going to be broken up into two parts. We recorded a few episodes at the lake for the Bachelor Weekend, but one of them absolutely failed. That was going to be our Monday episode, and this man check episode actually went super long. So we actually split this episode into two parts. So the first part is going to be today, and the second part is going to be on Friday. I'll leave you with two questions. One, how many times does John nod off in the episode? I haven't even counted. I feel like it's a lot. And how many times do I breathe into the mic? Just in the brief part that I listened to, honestly, I'm embarrassed. Also mentioned right here in the beginning of the show that Parker had been on the show before. Obviously, that's not true. We had recorded an episode on the dock earlier that day. It was going to be awesome, but for some reason, the program totally wigged out and only ended up exporting about the last 10 minutes of the episode. Who knows? Maybe we'll drop that one as a special release, but we will definitely have to make it up right at the wedding to get a little day of take and obviously catch up with some of the other groomsmen who were too tired at this point in the night to record. But nevertheless, enjoy the episode and look us up wherever you listen to podcasts. You lead, I follow. What's up, everybody, and welcome to your Friday dose of the Man Card Podcast, or as we like to call Man Check. We're so happy that you're here joining us. Mitchell, I don't mean to put him on blast.
Just do it.
But he had to leave. He had to leave us. So he left me with kind of the bottom of the barrel gentleman here. This is
sometimes it be like that. You just gotta deal with what you gotta deal with.
This is true. Look, I take what I can get. But I'm joined today. This is really our Man Card After Dark episode. So let's get a little cheers. You guys got neat. I got neat.
Here's to the After Dark.
After Dark.
After Dark, of course.
I'm joined with Parker and John. I know John's been on the episode, the podcast a couple of times. And I know Parker has been on the podcast once before. But this is within our Bachelor Weekend. Like we've had a really good time in these few days, and I know y'all are leaving tomorrow, so I just want to kind of get y'all's take on kind of the emotions around leaving and kind of your experience thus far.
Yeah, I would say for me, this is the first time I've been able to be a part of one of these things. I'm the baby brother. I've got my older brothers, coming up here in about a year.
Yeah, right.
But and I was just assumed that would be my first, to dip my toes in, But I think that it's been,
give you a trial run.
Absolutely,
in a way.
Especially because like in his case, like I will be the best man, and I don't
yes.
as a grown up best man, but still a little brother. You kind of play that dual role of like, am I leaning on these other guys in the group to like make everything happen because they're older than me, right? Like they're more mature, or
right.
am I like do I have experience in this? Am I gonna feel confident like, taking on that role and like doing the best thing that I can? And so I think this has been like super eye opening to me, seeing how good Evans has done and seeing what a weekend you guys have planned for us and really enjoying it. Just seeing like what I appreciated out of that and what I think the other guys maybe like in my brother's party will eventually appreciate out of that, and then even continue forward into like what I think I would like.
Well, it's funny you say that because Ellie's obviously maid of honor is going to be her younger sister, and so with that comes kind of the bag. Like I like the idea for me because I actually don't have any brothers. And so Evans is the closest thing that I had to a brother for my whole life. And so obviously he's going to be my best man. Yeah. But for Ellie, like it comes down to like her maid of honor is going to be her sister. So exactly like your situation. And so when it comes to like all of those decisions that have to be made, she's relying on her sister. And of course, like family dynamics are always changing. Like you're in, you're out, you're up, you're down. Like there's always like a lot of fluctuation with that. And so Ellie has found, I know like obviously they love each other. There's like that sisterly connection. But do you find, or maybe are you concerned a little bit with, your relationship with your brother going into a situation where you would be his best man, or something in that context?
Yeah, I would say like the blessing behind it is like that there is like from the outside, like there can be no fluctuation, right? Like there can be no questioning of like, okay, like this is my guy, right? And so it's like, even despite like I'm fortunate enough to be best friends with my brother. We weren't always growing up, but we grew into that status as we became older. And it's like, no one can ever be like, oh, like that's not your best friend. You're just picking him because he's your little brother, right?
Right.
And like we've like never had to deal with that because it's like a double-edged sword for the guy that makes that comment, right? It's like, well, one, we are fortunately enough, and two, it's like, what else would you say? It's like, you pick your little brother, you pick your little sister. Like these, like that's not something like super out of the barrel to do. And so it's like we've been fortunate enough to fill both those roles. But I do think like going along with like, depending on, how many bridesmaids like his fiance decides to have, things like that, it'll be like, more or less responsibility, because it could go from like a group of guys that I'm like, all right, like these were all my older brothers when I grew up, and like this is the group that I'm like hired to wrangle.
This is your crew. These are your people.
Yeah. Versus like, okay, like if we go a little bit more outside of the box, it may include some guys that I'd be less familiar with.
Right.
Not unfamiliar with, but less familiar with.
Sure.
And then that could increase the scope of like essentially like my effort as far as like figuring out what everyone's interested in, and that that's an ever expanding I guess equation.
Yeah, right. It's just such a funny situation. Like I always like to think of it in the context, because obviously going through this whole process of getting ready for marriage, it's just such a funny experience, because like I'm tired of it. Like at this point, I'm done. Like I'd much rather just be completely over than like continue doing it. And like,
is that a feeling that's kind of developed now that you're in the thick of it, or has that been something that's been the case since you've been engaged? Like, have you decided like, hey, like I just want this to be over because I want to marry you, or is it like just the process of it all?
I think it's twofold. So last year, and of course, like obviously everybody's going to do it different, but Ellie and I chose, after looking at apartments to move in together last year, we ultimately decided not to move in together before we got married. And so that was the decision that ultimately sent us, because I graduated last year, it sent me back to live with my parents, which, I'm sure we can all agree, as much as we love our families and parents,
very tough.
It's a weird situation to go back after 4+ years of living on your own to then go back and have these people that ran roughshod on your life before now get to call the shots again.
It's like the independence like transition, like in and out is like, that's like not necessarily, depending on the relationship between, like obviously your relationship with your parents grows, and it almost always grows when you go to college. It almost always grows in a positive way, but still it has that opportunity to like snap back in a way that like you didn't intend to. It's like, okay, like things are going so well, like I went off to college, like I gained my independence, like they have a lot of respect for me, I have a lot of respect for like what they gave me,
right?
And it has the opportunity to come back, and it's like, oh, like I'm in high school again. And like that's like the thing that like everyone's terrified.
It's so degrading in that way.
Absolutely.
Where it's like where you go, like you're 4 years on your own. You're 4 years successfully independent, doing classes, succeeding, ideally getting those A's. But granted, C's do get those degrees.
Guaranteed.
Guaranteed. But you're on your own for those 4 years, and you're calling the shots. And then it's like you come back home. And so, like, I'm at home now. I'm sorry. I was at home, and I just, like, literally last week moved out into my apartment that now I'm by myself for the first time ever in my life. it's just so jarring to go move back home because there's like these are the people that were the advice givers. They were the people that like made the choices for you.
Shot callers, essentially.
Yeah, ultimately, like they're the coaches of your life.
Yeah.
And then for 4 years, you were on your own being the coach of what was going on. And then to go back home and say like, wait, whoa. I thought I was the coach. Like, what's going on? Like, it's just very jarring and funny to like balance that out. So I just think it's like interesting because I know because you're dating somebody now, like what's that? Are you close to like engaging? Like what is that looking like in the future?
Yeah, I would say like for us fundamentally, we're going through a very similar thing to like what you're describing. Like I don't think that we're based off of like, you know, me still being a student and us deciding what that's going to look like for me post-graduation.
Right.
We're not necessarily close to engagement. Also, like my brother and my sister both just got engaged, so we're trying to wait our turn. Be respectful. Because
it's funny. I have something to speak on that in a second.
my mom's got a lot on her plate right now. We'll just say that, right? And she's concerned. But in general, we're just like navigating the space of like, you know, she's in a position where like the best move for her right now is like being at home.
Right.
Based off of like, okay, she's like, I'm working remotely. I don't have like an incredible roommate situation like she had in college. And she's like, okay, like the best situation is like, well, I just go home and I hang out and I just like, prepare for the future. And like, that's really tough because like home is further away from where I'm living with my full-time job and student and all that stuff like that. And so like, that's where it becomes very different to like, you know, that contrast of like, all right, I've been my own shot caller. I've been doing things by my book. And now I'm going to go back home where it's like, these people obviously have the utmost respect for me. They raised me, right? Like these are the people who made me who I am.
They have the ideal for you. So they want you to succeed.
Yeah. But navigating that in the realm of like, all right, these are people who care about me, yet like, is it okay for me to disagree with them? Now that I have experiences and now that I have context behind my actions, right? Like, because when you're leaving high school, you're just like, that sounds good. Like maybe you're an above average guy, or gal, and you've got more than the average context, and you're making, you know, you're calling shots based off of like overwhelming amounts of experience, but that's uncommon.
Very, especially from the high school to college transition is very rare for that.
Yeah, your parents have the best ideas, like in general. Like I do fundamentally believe that. And I mean honestly, like I'm the type of guy. It's like my mom's always right. It just depends on how we frame it. You know what I mean? Like she's always got it going on. It's just like we have to be on the same page for her to be right. And it's like, but if she's right, she's definitely right. And like that's the thing. It's like, okay, well, we're in a situation where like I wouldn't have the inability to ever move back home. Terrifies me.
Well, because you wouldn't be able. It's hard to turn to the person who was the one that gave you the most advice and say like, no.
I couldn't do it, frankly. I mean, like I could do it in like the small scale context.
It's really like you're wrong. Like ultimately, you would be saying you're wrong.
Yeah.
So
which fundamentally feels disrespectful, but it's also, it just comes from a place of like,
it's the realistic situation of you moving back home.
We see something differently, and I'm in the position where I'm allowed to make my own mistakes at this point.
Right. So you're still at Georgia Tech.
Absolutely.
So John, you're graduated, you have your job. You're on the cusp of kind of making that next transition.
Sure.
What is that looking like? Because I know obviously like I literally have groomsmen and best men that are in different stages of their lives, which I don't know. It's funny how that worked out. But like where, just give me the lowdown of where you are right now and like how that's kind of affecting your decisions going forward.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, like at a base level, a lot of my decision making at the moment revolves kind of around finances, especially considering where my job opportunities are and where my current position is. It is in a very expensive part of the United States, so I would say
Wait, where is that again?
New York, the Big Apple.
New York. I don't know. I don't know if I've heard of that before.
I don't think so. It's a small town.
Is it a new place?
Yeah, something like that.
Okay, new town. Gotcha.
Not a lot of people live there.
Up and coming area.
Up and coming. Okay.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah. So every decision I have right now, kind of, is in the hands of money, which is interesting because
Sure.
everything in my life until this point hasn't really come to that. Like I've never really had to worry that much about finances or rent or whatever else. And that's not to say I haven't had those things. I haven't had those things
why
goes
would
on.
you?
Why would I?
No, I'm saying why would you have to worry about that?
Okay, fair. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's no reason to. You don't think I don't know, when you're in school, you don't think about all the, maybe you do, but in my case, I didn't really think about the responsibilities that I would need as much as I should have.
Right.
Especially considering right now,
college is about deference of responsibility in a lot of ways. College is about putting off some of those things that feel very acute to adults as we consider them, right?
Yeah.
And handling those things later while we seek our education. So it makes total sense that those are things that catch up to you quicker when you decide to essentially take that next step, which you've done, which I have not done, which terrifies me absolutely. I'm gonna be clear, but it's that's the next stage is all right, taking that leap of faith and joining those two parts of your life where you were all right, I achieved academic excellence. Hopefully, I achieved a professional career that I'm proud of, and joining that with all those responsibilities that were either left to my parents or went by the wayside while I made all these decisions in the meantime.
Right. Well, I just think it's funny because whenever you're transitioning out of college to your, especially in your case, your single life on your own, potentially in a new city,
sure,
looking to move, that whole transition, it's on you.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's a decision that you, I say get to make, but that you get to make by yourself.
Sure.
It's more you have to make by yourself.
Yeah.
Because that's not something that your family or, parents or friends get to weigh in on, especially being somebody who is a single bachelor. Ladies, listen, if you're listening, we got John over here. He's one of the most eligible bachelors that has ever been on the show.
Snatch him up.
Dude, what a guy. What a guy.
I appreciate that.
But no, it's it's a decision that you're really forced to make. And so that's one of the reasons why moving into my apartment this past week has been one of the most jarring experiences that I've ever gone through.
Yeah.
Because it's it's one thing to move to college, right? And really, college in my mind is you move out of home, and it's almost like camp,
right?
Because you get to go back home whenever you want,
especially briefly. It's especially when you first start off, very much like camp, and then it grows to be something where you're wait, at camp, can I make sure mommy refills my card, my card for the shop, can I still go get Rolos once a week, I'm a Rolos guy. Sorry, I apologize. But yeah,
that's funny. Rolos, I'm telling you, legendary.
They slap. They will tear up your teeth, but they're absolutely worth it.
Tear up your teeth? What is this?
Oh, wait,
give me some insight.
It's I've always had trouble with the dentist.
Oh no, are you a Sensodyne user?
Absolutely not, but I probably should be, right? It was always that thing, my sister had pretty good dental hygiene, my older brother had pretty good dental hygiene, and then it was always me, and I was I brushed my teeth the same as they did, but it was always just I just had less luck with the whole cavities thing. Me and my brother, we could sit there, we could brush our teeth the same amount of time every single night, and then we'd show up to the dentist, and they'd be he's cavity free. You've got a cavity. I was just that was just how our life went. It's just
Do you have pits? Are you a really deep?
Oh, I have no idea. I do know that early on in our career as a family, that a dentist maybe tried to imply to my mother, they were maybe maybe you make sure that like the older two brush their teeth and you aren't as cognizant of like the third one, like brushing his teeth. And my mom was like, that's hilarious. We're going to go see another dentist.
It's like our third child, Parker, is ironically the most competitive person that we've ever seen.
And apparently it's negligence on our part when we that he doesn't brush his teeth as well. More importantly, it was like me and my brother. It was always a contest, right? It's like we brush our teeth the same way. But I just I guess it probably has something to do with the shape or something like that. But I always ended up with more cavities. I've done a lot better with it. Here. Like I guess especially since I grew up. But like when we were younger, it was so funny. He would always make me go to the dentist like a couple weeks before him. He'd be like, all right, like go scope it out, right? And I would go and they'd be like, all right, you got like a cavity. I had to go get a filling. He'd be like, like what a joke. And then I would come back and he'd be like, all right, give me that good toothpaste that they give you.
The good.
The good. And then he would like brush his teeth for 2 weeks with like the good toothpaste. And then he'd show up to his dentist appointment. Kid never had a cavity in his life.
But like, that's the thing is, it wouldn't have mattered.
But he was convinced. He was like, I'm gaming the system.
I'm in it. This dentist has it out, like he's on my side.
Yeah.
Screw you.
He knew.
He's on my side.
Well, exactly. I mean, obviously you've met Will, but anyone who's met my older brother knows that.
What's up?
Playing the game is a fundamental characteristic of his that he knows how to get you, right? So if going to the dentist a couple weeks later than his little brother would keep him away from the cavities, like he was going to do it.
Sign me up.
So I respect his success. And I wish I had it, but I'm not scared of a little drill. You know what I mean?
No,
they numb you up. I'm not scared of it.
No,
come at me. I've been getting it since I was little.
Yeah, they're just too good at this point. Like related to anything like medical wise or whatever, they're just too good. Like the best time to ever have anything wrong with you is now.
Yeah.
So
well, see, and that catchphrase of like medical success always makes me laugh. Because people like date that back to like 1920. Like people are like, the best time to go to the doctor is now. It's like that's always going to be true.
Yeah, definitely, during the Depression and stuff. I mean, I guess I was almost a whole decade after that. But I don't know how many people were saying that then.
The most current time, like the most like right now or right now then.
It's always the best. It's always the best time to have an ailment is right now. The best time to wear striped sweaters all the time.
Ironic. Well, and it's the same thing as like you're the youngest you're ever going to be right now.
Absolutely. Yeah. I do fundamentally believe in that. It's like, anytime I get a scrape or a scratch or a sprained ankle, I'm always like, you know what?
Damn, that's 10 more girls that aren't going to date me.
Yeah, I don't know if that's usually it. It's usually they've already made up their mind before or after the sprained ankle.
Yeah, they look at you across the room. They're like,
they're like, oh, the hair.
Do I want
the hairline
a pseudo Russian, a Russian man?
But
I don't know.
In general, it's always just like, that's fair enough. But I think it's like if you're confident enough in your athleticism and you in general take care of yourself, it's like you can handle the little stuff. The big stuff is what scares me. Like people are like, you gotta have health insurance. I'm like, what for? Like I don't know if I've ever had such an injury that warranted health insurance.
It's like, when was the last time I went to the hospital?
But like, God forbid. I'm like, wait. Right. But like the one time I like don't have health insurance, like it's of course gonna happen, right?
Well,
like, that's how the world works.
We've literally just been playing poker pretty much all weekend, and so like the idea of hedging your bets, it's like that's literally what insurance is. And so for us to be like smug and say like, oh, like we're young, like we're fit, like we're never gonna have any problems. It's like. And of course, John's about to roast both of us.
John plays every hand. He's absolutely not scared of us.
Okay, yeah. So all right, let's just be very clear. Parker, good at poker. John, bad at poker.
Wrong.
But I think when it comes to health, I think John has a better perspective on what it means to be better prepared for health in general.
Yeah, you never know. You never know what's going to happen. You never know what's going to hit you, what's not going to hit you. I do have a unique experience, but I mean, at the end of the day, like, I guess that health insurance is literally just there just in case. So
just in case.
Just in case.
And if you want to go back and check out our previous podcast where John was on. I am a little tipsy right now, so I cannot remember the name of the show that John was on before. But go check it out. Actually, you know what? I do remember. Dogecoin to the Moon. Go check it out. It's definitely a fun show. We have John on. He talks about his experience going out west, which was absolutely a freaking blast. Actually, we'll touch on it right now. Like, just a little bit more perspective after that time. Like, you just literally trekked out by yourself.
Sure.
Out west. Like, first of all, I don't think we touched on this before. Why the heck would you do that?
Well, it was one of those situations where I just love being outside. I love being out in nature. And I knew that beginning my career, I wouldn't really have the time for it. And like the stigma with a lot of people going into business, especially that I know from tech, like the stigma is you're going to grind out your first couple of years. You're not going to have a whole lot of time for anything, not for yourself, not for anybody else. Literally, you're now kind of slated for your company. And so I kind of knew that going in, and I knew that my time was coming. So all those trips that I've taken over the last year, all those states that I visited, all those national parks I've seen, was really just like a gift to myself, I guess, in preparing myself to like finally cross that threshold into adulthood. Like that was like the final bridge between like being, I guess, almost like a child into being an adult. And like that was my last ounce of like total freedom.
So do you find that threshold from childhood to adulthood being like your single experience, like your solo experience that you get to have? Or like what do you really define as your transition into adulthood? Because I feel like you kind of had that in a really interesting way. Like you had that college experience where you got to be by yourself, but you also then like were just like, you know what, screw it. Like my best friend bailed on me. Like I'm just gonna go out west by myself. You know, it's like what does that transition to adulthood mean? Because I know like when we had the Native Americans, like they would literally send some of their young men out by themselves for weeks,
right,
trying to figure out who they were, like fighting bears, like in the wilderness by themselves. Like what do you really find is like the delineation between like just a boy and a man?
I really think, at least for myself, and I can't speak for everybody else, but I think for myself in my situation, the delimitation was certainly just like the fact that I was now capable of handling myself alone for an extended amount of time. Like I mean, I traveled pretty frequently over the last, I guess, 6 months, but especially related to my big road trip where I was by myself for 3 weeks. I think a huge testament to like becoming a man is being able to handle yourself and being able to be okay with being by yourself and taking care of business by yourself. And I mean, that's not to say that you can't be with other people and not have that support group around you or not have that special person with you. But the fact that you can do it for yourself and by yourself, I feel like that's what kind of makes you, I guess, an adult, a man. So.
No, I like that. It's funny because like when it comes to finding that threshold, I feel like, and that's one of the reasons why I really respect the idea of like, I'm going to send you off into the wilderness for you to find what it means to be a man. Because like we're not the people to define what it means for you to be a man. Like each person gets to define that for themselves. And I feel like in today's society, it's like we lack that a ton. But before we run out of time on this recording, I'm going to send you over to the next half where we're going to continue this conversation. So we'll see you in the other half.